Rob Dauster here. I got Jeff Goodman with me.
Hell no.
John Fink.
Are we still live?
Field of 68 till I die.
I'm sorry, man. I blacked out.
Randolph Children.
DJ Khaled, you know the big DJ Khaled guy?
Hands brought up and in.
Goodman needs to be fired all the time.
Josh Pastner.
You're going to beat people straight up.
You know the deal.
They have no swag. They have no nothing.
Terrell McNeil.
From the bluest of the blue bloods to the smallest of the mid-majors.
This is Field of 68 after dark.
Hello and welcome to a Thursday morning special edition of the Field of 68 After Coffee podcast today. Jeff Goodman showed up late today because he was trying to go get his coffee right here. I got my cup. I'm not drinking his iced latte, frozen mocha, 27 scoops of sugar in there. What else do you have, Jeff?
This is Starbucks Reserved. It's downstairs. It's like this huge Starbucks. Like, not even a Starbucks guy, but this thing is big time. So I don't know, a couple things. I'm going to get fatter than I already am and feel good. Feel good in Chicago. Love Chicago in the summer. Love it. May not leave.
I appreciate you sharing all of your Starbucks adventures with us, Goodman. We have a lot to talk about today, man. The NBA draft happened last night. I was locked in. I was tuned in. I was watching with bated breath.
You were Janet Jackson. That's bullshit. You were Janet Jackson. Come clean.
I was. Do you think I'm ashamed of it? No. My wife wanted tickets to the Nelly Janet Jackson concert for Mother's Day, and I got her tickets to the Nelly Janet Jackson concert for Mother's Day, and we went and we had a great time. It was awesome. I don't know a single Janet Jackson song I didn't know before the concert. I didn't know a single Janet Jackson song after the concert, but my wife had a blast. She had fun. I turned a ton of husband points. I can teach you a thing or two about being a good husband if you want me to.
As long as you didn't show any nipple at the concert, that's all. That
I did. I kept doing this. And people, the Janet Jackson fans were kind of judging me for it. Anyway, we have a lot. No, not many people are. I amuse myself though, Jeff. We have a lot to talk about in this draft, and we have a lot to get to in the show. We're going to break down the winners and losers from the draft. The biggest reach, I think we both agree on this one, and I think there was a head scratcher for everyone except for Bleacher Report's Jonathan Wasserman, who was doing jumping jacks when he saw this guy get picked. We'll talk about that in a second. We're going to dive into the best players that are left on the board because I do think that there is some talent that is still available and some objectively interesting second-round picks that are available. And we got to talk about Dalton, Knecht, and Zach Edey, and of course, I'm going to talk up my UConn Huskies. Two of them got picked in the top 7 of this year's draft. But let's just kind of reset it here real quick. Top 3 picks. Zachary Risache goes number 1 to the Atlanta Hawks. Alex Sarr goes number 2 to the Washington Wizards. Reed Shepherd goes number 3 to the Houston Rockets. Steph Castle goes 4th to the San Antonio Spurs. Goodman, after what felt like a month of everybody talking about how unpredictable the top of this draft was going to be, it ended up being the top 4 picks were exactly who everybody I think every single mock draft had the top 4 as the top 4.
Is that right?
What did you make of the start of this draft?
Well,
pretty much everyone except yours.
Because I didn't do a mock draft this year. I didn't talk to enough NBA guys to do it. But they all copy each other. It's generally the idea. They might tinker with a thing here or there, but generally most of the mock drafts, they're not actually calling NBA guys. So they're just kind of copying the guys who actually do talk to NBA guys. I mean, listen, to me, I was happy that Houston took Reed Shepherd. Like, none of these guys, to me, jump off the page as players that you're going to build your franchise around. So if you're talking about in the top 10, getting a guy that can be a starter for your franchise and impact winning for the next 5 or 10 years, that's probably a realistic expectation from this draft. So even Risache, is a guy that, again, probably more of a 3-and-D guy. If you're Atlanta, you're Landry Fields, you're saying to yourself, like, I just don't want to screw this thing up too bad. I have a need. I don't know what I'm doing yet with Trae Young and DeJounte Murray. I'm going to bring in a guy that I know can make shots, can guard, and he'll be a nice piece. Sarr has a higher upside. We could see that. Like, defensively.
Alex Sarr, not Olivier Sarr.
Alex Sarr.
Olivier Sarr is the former Kentucky big man.
Yeah. Alex Sarr is the one with a high upside who, again, defensively can impact today. Offensively, we don't know what he's going to be. I just thought Reed Sheppard, to me, fits Houston in a lot of ways, was a guy that can make, everybody better around him. They've got a bunch of really talented players there. Reed obviously can shoot the hell out of it. They got a team. I mean, Ime Udoka did a great job last year making them competitive. And now you add a guy like Reed Sheppard that's just going to elevate everybody, just like he did at Kentucky. He's just going to kind of elevate everybody and do it semi-quietly, but he can play both guard spots. He can shoot the hell out of it. He's a high IQ guy. And you know what? He'll be better defensively when you can hide him a little bit. And I think he's actually a better defender than he showed anyway. He was just playing with a bunch of dudes that honestly didn't want to defend.
He has things that he needs to improve on the defensive end of the floor without question. I think that's inarguable. But the instincts are there. The work ethic is there. The basketball IQ is there. And I do believe that he will find a way to be able to be not a negative, right? Like, I don't think he's ever going to be Patrick Beverley or someone of that ilk, but I think he'll find a way to be able to get there. No, I agree with you. And maybe it tells you that I don't watch as much NBA as a lot of other people do until you get to the playoffs, but I didn't quite realize like how close to win now the Rockets were. Like, I still kind of had in my mind that this was the team and the organization from like 2 years ago when they were kind of in that rebuild mold. Right. And I think adding a guy that can be a nice piece, especially someone that still has some upside and has some ceiling, I think is a really, really solid pick. And everybody had Reed Sheppard mocked to Houston when we did our mock draft. That was the only pick where every single person doing the mock draft in their own individual mock draft had Reed Sheppard mocked to Houston. So that was an interesting one. I'm going to save the Steph Castle conversation, Jeff, because I know that it's something that we disagree on a little bit. We can get into that argument here in a second. And I think we all agree on the biggest reach, or both of us agree on the biggest reach, and we'll have that conversation here later. What I want to get into with you is I thought it was really intriguing that two elite college bigs in an era where college bigs tend to come back to school to be able to make more NIL than they can at the NBA level were drafted in the top 9. And I don't know if that's necessarily something that we expected heading into the season. I think it's not something that we expected heading into draft night. But Donovan Clingan goes 7, Zach Edey goes 9. Is there anything overarching here that we can take away from this? Is there anything big picture that you think can be told, or is this just like what the draft was? We happen to have a really good big in Clingan that fits the NBA, and then you have a generational talent in Zach Edey that just, someone was going to take a swing on at some point.
Well, I mean, I think the NBA has started to go back to the big, not what it was, but it went so far away from the big man the last few years in terms of the value of, the big that wasn't super skilled, right? Like the athletic skill big, which there aren't many of them, they're going to translate anyway. But, the Jahlil Okafors, for instance, right? Like the Jahlil Okafors, who was drafted in the top, 3, 10 years ago, obviously wouldn't have been drafted there or anything close to there in the last 5 years. So I think it's started to kind of go back. But, again, you're looking at Joker and Embiid and try to make a determinant off those guys. Those guys are freaks. Those guys are once in a lifetime, type players to some degree as bigs. Donovan Clingan still can't score. So, yes, I was still surprised. People thought, listen, I never thought for a moment he was in the discussion for the number 1 overall pick. And to be honest, like 7th, yeah, I'm okay with him going 7th. That's okay in this draft, because 7th in this draft is like, 15 in 15 to 20 in a normal draft. Zach Edey, I think he's going to be a good play. I just don't know if these guys are going to be 30-minute a game starters for 10 years in the NBA. If they are, count me as wrong. I just don't think that's going to be their role through the course of the longevity of their NBA career, unless the NBA continues to kind of go away from what it's been the last few years with bigs.
So I disagree with you on Clingan. I'm glad that he wasn't the number one pick, because I think that being the number one pick in this year's draft is going to carry with it a tag that you don't want. Like there's an added level of pressure with being the number one pick in the draft that I don't think anybody in this draft class is capable of living up to, right? Like when you're picking number one, you want to get a Wemby, you want to get a Paolo, you want to get someone at that level. And I just don't think that there's anyone in this draft class that can live up to those expectations. But I think that Klingen's ability to pass the ball, right? I think his ability to read the game, I think that he is a guy that has a better understanding of what is happening offensively than he was able to show at UConn this year. I think that the jumper, I'm actually buying the jumper long term. I know he didn't shoot all that well from the free throw line. I think he shot 9 in his college career.
Like, how are you buying it long term yet? I mean, I don't know how you can be buying yet.
Because I know how hard he works on it, and I've seen the stroke up close and in person. Like the stroke is not broken; the stroke is there. So I think like if you are, I would bet on him finding a way to be able to make open threes. I'm not saying that he's going to end up going out here shooting like 9 a game. What I'm saying is that I think that he will get to a point where if you leave him open, he will be able to make 35% of his threes from the top of the key at the NBA level. And I think his passing ability will allow him to be effective offensively. I think when you put him in the right situation on a team that has a bunch of really talented guards, I think that they're going to find a way to be able to scheme ways for him to create space by rolling to the rim, scheme ways to be able to use him in short roll actions because of his ability to pass. I think that offensively he has a higher ceiling than anybody gave him credit for. And I don't think it's necessarily as like a throw the ball into the post, low post scorer kind of a guy, right? But I think that there are things that you can do as a player or with him as a player that will allow him to be effective at the NBA level.
Do you think he can play? Hey, do you think he and DeAndre Ayton can play together?
No, but in my mind, I would draft Klingen to be able to try to trade the DeAndre Ayton to get something out of it
for 34 and 35 million in the next 2 years. Good luck.
I mean, look, it is what it is, man. But I like what Klingen's long-term ability is. And I don't think that you're drafting Klingen for like this year. I think you're drafting Klingen for what he could be in like 3 years from now, more or less. Right. Edey is the interesting one though. And I kind of want to dive into this because I think that it is objectively fantastic for the sport of college basketball. Like we like covering the draft. I love the NBA playoffs. I know you're a big NBA guy too. But this is a college basketball show. And I think it is objectively great for the sport of college basketball that a guy that was, I think you could make the argument, the best player that we have seen at minimum since Tyler Hansbrough. You could probably make an argument since Jalen Brunson, right? But among a handful of the best players that we've seen in this century, right? In the 2000s, back-to-back National Player of the Year, made it to the national title game, and was able to be a top 10 pick. Because if this was something where he slid, and let's just say that Zach Edey went through the Kyle Filipowski experience right now, right? Yeah. I don't think that looks good for the sport. I think that is a bad thing if you can't have guys that have that level of success in college translate to the league. I love that the Grizzlies took a shot on him. I am trying to figure out how they will be able to use him with Ja Morant, who wants to get up and down the floor. But I think that he is Edey, that is a bigger, stronger, and potentially better version of Steven Adams, right? Version of Jonas Valanciunas, who we've seen have success there. And I think I'm very intrigued to see what happened. I said this on our scouting profile, and I'll let you kind of get into this next, but he is a guy that is similar to Zion Williamson and Chet Holmgren to me, in the sense that part of the reasons we doubted him was because we've never seen somebody with that body type in the modern NBA have a level of success that we expected, right? Zion, it was more coming from high school to college, and it was college to the NBA. Chet, it was after what he did in college. Can somebody that skinny be effective at the NBA? Well, yeah, he can. With Zion, it's like, can somebody who is like a 6'6" bowling ball of a 4-man be successful in college as he was playing local high school basketball in South Carolina? Well, yeah, he can. Can Zach Edey, a guy who is that big and that physical and that in shape and that athletic for somebody that is 7'5", 300 pounds, can he have that level of success in college and translate to the NBA? maybe he can. Outliers are outliers for a reason. So I think it's a great thing for the sport overall that Edey was picked where he was. And I can tell you this, I will be rooting as hard for Zach Edey as anybody that does not wear, like, I got my Paint Crew shirt on right now.
Yeah, I mean, listen, it was cool to see him not go to the green room and celebrate with his family last night. Zach's story is awesome again, and we forget this is a kid who still only played organized basketball for about 7 years, so there's still a lot of growth there. I think again he allows you to play Jaren Jackson Jr. at the 4, which is where he should be. So the fit works for me with John Morant, with Jaren Jackson Jr. The fit doesn't work for me nearly as much in Portland with a lot of those guards that are more about scoring. And then you have Ayton, you have Robert Williams, who is always hurt, so you can't rely on him anyway. But I'm more worried about Donovan Clingan being able to break through and play a bigger role in the NBA than I am about Zach Edey, to be honest. I don't know if that's crazy, and part of it is the last memory I have of Edey and Clingan was honestly Edey taking it to Donovan Clingan on both ends of the court in the national title game. I just think Edey's far more advanced right now on both ends than Clingan is. Clingan's awesome defensively. He's got a long way to go on the offensive end. So I'm happy for both. They're both great kids. You remember what Edey told me right before after they won the national semifinal game? And he wasn't very happy with me at the end of the year because I was questioning whether or not he could play a huge role in the NBA. I felt like, he might be a backup. And he goes right up to me, and they won the game. They won the national semifinals. And I'm ready to interview him. And he says, you still think I can't play in the NBA? I'm like, I never said you can't play. I just worry about your role. And I mean, he's going to get every opportunity now, Rob, to prove myself and other people wrong, because I think he's going to get a chance to play extended minutes. And you know what? His conditioning says that he's going to be able to. The question is, can Taylor Jenkins figure out, how to keep him on the court and not be a liability, I think, in terms of getting up and down and on the defensive end?
To me, it's less about being a liability during the regular season than it is being a liability when you get to the playoffs, right? Like we see someone who, like a Rudy Gobert, right? We see the issues that he has staying on the floor at the NBA level, and he's an all defense guy. So like, I get it. It's not, if Zach Edey was a sure thing defensively, he wouldn't have dropped to number 9, and he wouldn't have been mocked as like a guy that was in the late lottery, mid first round, right? So there's always going to be question marks when you are that big, because we haven't seen it happen. I'm willing to bet on the outliers. I'll be rooting for him. Before we get to a break, I just want to add, like you mentioned the draft party that he had. If people want to understand why Matt Painter's been able to develop Purdue into a program that has had this level of success in college, and why they are consistently able to perform better than the sum of their parts, right? All you have to do is go back and look at the videos from last night. Zach Edey turned down an invite to New York City in the green room to go to, I believe that was Painter's backyard, and hang out with his former team.
I didn't know. Yeah. Is that where it was?
I think it was. I don't know that for a fact. I think it was. I don't know. Somebody's backyard. Somebody in West Lafayette hosted a party for him. Zach Edey came back instead of going to the green room. All of his teammates were there. Mason Gillis flew back from Durham, North Carolina to go to West Lafayette to hang out with the guys he just transferred away from. If you want to understand why Purdue is Purdue right now, and why you always just want to bet on Matt Painter and those teams, like, that's all you got to see. Did you see how happy those dudes were for him? Did you see how happy Mason Gillis was? Did you see how welcoming they were?
Because he never made it about himself.
Yes.
For 2 years, Zach Edey never once made it about himself. That was the beauty about him as his ascension, because it did. It came out of nowhere, right? I mean, for the most part. We remember when he was, playing behind Trevion Williams a few years ago, and he never complained then, right? Most guys would have complained because he was kicking Trevion Williams' ass in practice every day that year, and he never complained once. So Zach Edey, the teammate, elite. It is a great story. It's a great story that I hope was really told, and told the right way on ESPN last night, because The kid's done everything he could to, again, conduct himself the right way, be a great teammate, get better, like all the things you want for a player. And, oh, by the way, like this isn't a guy who tried to milk Purdue for every dollar NIL-wise either.
Yes, I'm just he's everything that you want college basketball to be about. And I know, look, I understand why there were some people that pushed back against the Zach Edey storyline last season. If I was a Big Ten fan and I saw my team routinely getting their ass kicked by him, Trevor, I think that that's something that I would have been. I'm happy to see him go. But like from a big picture thing, man, he's a great thing for college basketball. He's a great story, and he is what we want to root for. At least me, the way I'm.
By the way,
it
was at Painter's house. It was at Painter's
Whose house was it? It was
Matt Painter's house. Yeah, Matt Painter's house.
Well, hey, cool. Look, Paint. I need the invite next time, man. That looked like an awesome party. What am I?
You're not getting.
I got my Paint Crew shirt on. I got my Paint Crew shirt on here, man.
Never.
Okay.
Never.
Painter, I make really good steaks. Listen, we got to get to a break. When we come back, Goodman's got some info on why Dalton Knecht slid to the 17th pick, and I'm going to tell you why that might be the single best thing that could have ever happened to Dalton Knecht. That's next. If you haven't heard by now, we have partnered with BetMGM Sportsbook. We're going to be using BetMGM lines to make all of our picks, and we'll have special offers for the listeners and the viewers of the Field of 68 throughout the year. If you haven't signed up for BetMGM yet, you can use bonus code FIELD, and you will get up to a $1,500 first bet offer on your first wager with BetMGM. The best part, all you need to do is deposit and bet $10 of your own hard-earned money to be eligible. Here's how you make it work. Download the BetMGM app and sign up using that bonus code FIELD. Deposit at least $10 and place your first wager on any game, and you will receive up to $1,500 in bonus bets if your bet loses. Just make sure that you use that bonus code FIELD when you sign up. BetMGM is going to have some fun offers available throughout the NBA playoffs. Bet insurance tokens, odds boost, and what I love, a nice parlay boost or two from time to time, as well as a ridiculous array of player prop bets for any sport that you could possibly imagine betting on. BetMGM is and always will be the king of the prop bet. So go download the BetMGM app, use the bonus code FIELD, and sign up today. And while I've got you, a quick request. The best way to support the Field of 68 content that you get for free is to engage with us. Rate and review the podcast. Like and share the YouTube videos. Tell your friends about us. It all helps in a world where the algorithm is king. And now, back to the show. Welcome back to the Field of 68's post-first round NBA draft reaction show. It's very weird to me that this is a 2-day draft, Jeff, and it's very strange to sit here and react to what we saw on day one, knowing that there's still more picks to be made later on this afternoon for day 2 of the draft. We're going to talk about those guys that were in the green room and now have to spend a whole nother day waiting to get picked. We've seen that in the NFL before. First time we've seen
how many
it in
were
the
there?
NBA. Filipowski and Filipowski and Johnny Furphy were the two, which not ideal, not great, kind of sucks. Feel bad for him, but
well, you wonder now. You do look at like Furphy's decision now, and you say to yourself, did he make the wrong call? Did he make the wrong call? Did he get bad advice? Because a lot of people
we'll get to that.
20s.
Yeah, we'll get to that in a second. I have that written down as a topic. Before we do, biggest winner of the night for me, no doubt about it, the Lakers. They had a guy that for me is one of the top 3 instant impact guys in this draft, maybe the best instant impact guy in this draft, arguably the second best shooter in this draft, and a guy that was the second best player in all of college basketball this past season, Dalton Knecht, slid all the way to 17th. Jeff, what happened there?
I think it might have been a combination of age, because if you do look at most of those top picks, most of the top guys who went in the top 20 were young. There were only a couple guys. Devin Carter went 13th to Sacramento. He's a 5th-year kid. Edey. Other than that, most of the guys we were talking about really in the top 12, 13, maybe even more than that were I'm looking at it, 16. In the top 16 picks, how many guys played more than 2 years of college ball that were college players. Not many, right? I mean, I'm looking Edey and Devin Carter, and that's it. Khalil Ware played too. So, yeah, I think part of it was age. Being 23 and a half didn't help Dalton Knecht's case. I also think from what I just got off the phone with a couple NBA GMs, and one of them said to me that the agent might have overplayed his hand a little bit. And that tends to happen now. These guys don't want to work out like they used to. If they do work out, they're going 1-0. But a lot of the agents, frankly, are overplaying their hand. And then it comes down to it, and you're sitting there and you're like, I didn't really have a chance to sit down with him or get him in. He doesn't really want to be here. And then you look at, too, like the teams. Like Daryl Morey at 16, that's not the type of player that Daryl Morey's going to generally take at 16. He should have. Instead of, to me, Jared McCain. Khalil Ware, the Heat at 15, I'm shocked that they didn't take Dalton Knecht because I think he could have helped them. Like a bunch of these teams, I think he could have certainly helped. But, if I'm LeBron, Rob Pelinka, JJ Redick, I'm ecstatic because I have another guy. Now, he can't guard. That's the only issue, right? Like, he can't guard, and they don't have great perimeter defense right now with the Lakers. So that worries me. But you weren't going to get an overall great play. Like, I thought maybe Terrence Shannon at that point. But to me, Dalton Knecht at least gives you another weapon offensively and a guy who's older who can help you right away.
Yeah, with the Heat, I get it. They got Tyler Hero. They don't really need another guy that's kind of in that mold. The Sixers, as a guy that kind of lives right around Philly now, I would have liked to see them take Dalton Knecht, but I get it with Jared McCain. If you're buying him as the second best shooter in this class with some upside, I get it. Like Sacramento, they targeted Devin Carter in large part because of what he can do defensively. The Oklahoma City Thunder, like they're drafting a guy, Nikola Topic, that can basically replace Josh Giddey, who they just traded away. So they needed that kind of.
What about the Bulls? I would have taken him at 11 with the Bulls.
Yes, that was the one where I was like, I kind of a little bit of a head scratcher. I thought that would have made more sense to get Dalton Knecht there. But you know what? They must have watched our Field of 68 live mock draft, because I took Modest Buzelis for the Chicago Bulls with the number 11 pick. Yeah, that's what it was, man.
They must have. They paid attention to me. You guys are the same person.
Yeah, that's basically the problem. It was names that you can't pronounce. The GM there wanted to be able to get someone whose name you couldn't pronounce. Dalton is too easy to say. That's part of why he slid. I think it's a perfect fit, though. You're going to give me a guy that was arguably the best catch and shoot guy, run off of a screen guy in this draft class, and let him go get coached by JJ Redick. If you're Dalton Knecht, like I am doing jumping jacks with where I landed. You got like feeding you the ball, right? You got JJ Redick, a guy that knows how to put you in situations to be successful better than anybody else. You got Edey behind you to be able to erase all the mistakes you're going to make defensively. I think he landed in a great spot. He's going to be playing in the playoffs next year. He might even be starting.
Yeah, no, again, I think that one fell into Rob Pelinka's lap. And, a year after taking Jalen Hood-Schifino at the same spot, who wasn't quite ready, I think at least you're getting a guy now who can impact today. And that's my problem in this draft, where I don't think there was a huge talent, difference. There just wasn't a huge talent disparity in this draft. I felt like more teams should have went for fit than did. There were some teams that did. And then there were some teams that, again, like Chicago and Buzelis, I just didn't think it was a fit at all. First of all, he's back home. I'm not sure that's the best thing for Modest, number one. Number two, he's young. Now, he can shoot. He shot like crap last year. He's a much better shooter than he displayed last year with G League Ignite. But I just don't think he's ready. And if I'm Chicago, like I need to win a little bit more now, or just completely rebuild, tear it down if you're Reinsdorf. One or the other. But I don't think Modest helps you very much today or in the next couple of years because he can't guard you right now.
Well, yeah, I mean that's kind of the takeaway that I have there is that Chicago feels like they have as many question marks and many balls up in the air when it comes to Zach LaVine and DeMar DeRozan, and like Is Lonzo Ball still alive? Like, yeah, to me, if you're drafting Modest there over Dalton Knecht, it kind of says like, all right, we're just going to tear this thing down to start over from scratch and build around Kobe White and see what we can do there. All right. So we're talking about biggest win. I still think the Lakers are the biggest winner just because they got like a top 5, 6-ish kind of a talent at number 17 in this draft. You're going elsewhere on the biggest winner. You have a hot take. So I'm gonna call the ISO, right? Doing fist, 1-4 low, Goodman. Go ahead. Cook, what do you got here? Who is your biggest winner from last night's draft?
I mean, this is easy to me. I think it's an easy pick. Like, it's the Minnesota Timberwolves, who just got to the Western Conference Finals. They have one of the most electrifying players in the game in the Ant-Man and Ant Edwards. They did something that nobody expected this year. And they just added 2 guys who can help you now. And they traded, think about this, Rob. They just traded a 2031 first-round pick, and they swapped in 2030 to San Antonio when Greg Popovich will be 82 years old in 2031. 82 years old. And they got Rob Dillingham. What do they need more than anything? Another shot creator to take some pressure off the Ant-Man, right? We watched the playoffs. You could see it. It was too much on Anthony Edwards. What does Robert Dillingham do better than anybody in this draft, Rob?
Score. Create.
Yeah.
Get a bucket.
He can go get you one, right? He can go get you one. And he can be a second unit guy, but, man, you could put him out there with Ant-Man, and he'll be just fine. He can go get you a bucket. He's small. He's only 165 pounds. He's probably going to gain 10 pounds in the next few years. But he can be in that Lou Williams type role eventually. And then you go and again, you gotta give up a pick in 2031. Who cares? You worry about 2031, in 7 years. And then you go get Terrence Shannon Jr. at 27, who was arguably the second best player in college basketball last season, right before obviously legal issues kind of derailed his season to some degree, but he still played great even under those circumstances. Ultimately was found not guilty after going to a trial, and he took Illinois deep into the NCAA tournament. But what he is a man. He's a fifth-year kid who can guard a high level, who's got the physical tools, who is an improved perimeter shooter. He'll never be a great perimeter shooter, but improved, and a great straight-line driver, right? Like, Terrence Shannon is perfect for this Minnesota culture and what they need because, again, he can play right away now. He's not going to be the guy offensively or anything close to it because you've got other weapons right now. You just need pieces. And Shannon and Dillingham are pieces that can come in to a contending team. I'm not sure they're NBA title contending, but they're not far off. And they added 2 guys that can be a part of taking that to another level. So I love what Tim Connolly did at Minnesota, and I loved what he did at Denver. Tim Connolly's one of those dudes. Like, there's a handful of guys right now. Obviously, you're looking at Brad Stevens, Sam Presti, Danny Ainge, what he's done over the years. Like, Tim Connolly belongs in that conversation. He's elite at what he does.
Okay, so the only thing I'd push back on is the idea that Minnesota's not NBA title contending, right? Like, they made it to the Western Conference Finals. They beat the reigning NBA champions, and they were one possession away in each of their first 2 games.
Oh, they're contending. It's fine. That's fair. They're there. I just want to see him do it again, Rob.
Well, you know what they need? Like, what they needed was another guy that could take some of the pressure off of Anthony Edwards offensively, which is what you're shooting for with Rob Dillingham. We'll see if that ends up being the answer, but like, that's why you're drafting him there. That's what you're going for. You are taking that shot that he's going to be that guy. And frankly, like, when you have a team that is one of the best defensive teams in the NBA, you could take a risk on a dude that's not going to guard if you're going to play him for 22 minutes a night against someone else's second 5, and hope that he's going to be able to get you like a little bit of, like, he is Mr. Spurtability. Sometimes it's for your team, sometimes it's for the other team, but he is a guy that's going to make stuff happen. And then you get someone like Terrence Shannon, who I think he's going to be elite in transition. Like, I'm with you. I think Minnesota was a big winner last night in the draft. I love what they did, and I think that they got better, and that's one of the more difficult things to do. On another note, I am it is nice to see Terrence Shannon be able to celebrate. Like, he went through a lot last year, right? Like, I don't envy what he had to deal with going on road crowds, especially when we know now what that he was found innocent or found not guilty at the trial. So it's nice to see him be able to celebrate that. It's nice to see him get his moment, and I am glad that legal process played out before the draft happened, because if he was still going through that trial and that was still hanging over his head, he wouldn't have been a first round pick. Like, that's not something that you would have been able to do.
And for those,
as an NBA front
the
office.
other part, I also want to say for those Illinois fans who hammered us earlier this year when everything kind of came to light and the charges, he faced the charges and he eventually had to go to a trial. It's a hard situation for us because, again, if there are allegations, it's one thing. But when charges are filed and he's got to go to jury, like, we have to be careful how we handle this. I've known Terrence Shannon for a few years, and I think I said it when everything broke. I think I said, hey, listen, from my personal dealings with Terrence Shannon Jr. and everything I know of the kid, I was shocked. But again, I can't play judge. I can't play lawyer in all this. We don't know all the information, so we got to let it play out. And it sucks that Terrence Shannon Jr. had to go through what he had to go through last season. It sucks looking back on it now, being found not guilty. But again, we've got to handle this thing, with we got to be smart about how we handle it too. We can't come out and, hey, this is complete bullshit or anything like that, because we're not in it. We're not in it. We're not reading every document. We're not, and maybe we should, but we have other things to do as well.
Yeah, and it's not easy to get your hands on that stuff. And when this happened with Des Wells, remember when this happened with Des Wells at Xavier, and Xavier had had that whole process played out. He was found not guilty as well. That was determined to be a false allegation, and he sued the university, and I believe he was able to get 7 figures out of them as a result of the way that kind of played out. I don't know if that's going to be what happens with Terrence Shannon, because the way that he already took Illinois to court to get himself back eligible to play again. But yeah, I'm glad that he was able to get his moment. And, I have one
more just footnote to add to the Dillingham to Minnesota thing. Is there a player that you would rather have tutor you in the entire NBA at the point guard spot than Mike Conley? Is there one guy you would rather have if you're Rob Dillingham?
No, it's a great landing spot for him. Yes. It is in theory, a great fit for Minnesota. We'll see if it ends up playing out. Like,
they won the draft, Rob. They won the draft.
I understand why they're making the bet that they're making. To me, they're still taking a risk here. It's a little bit like the Zach Edey thing. Like, he weighs 160 pounds and he's like 5'11". Like there's still a very significant risk to drafting a dude that is that small at that.
He'll get to 175. He'll get to 175.
I think the way to phrase it is, I think it is a good process to make that pick. I got one more winner for you. I got a couple more. I have the Blazers as a winner, getting Klingon at 7 because he fell that far. I have the Thunder as I have the Thunder as a winner because I like what they did, trading Josh Giddey to get Alex Caruso, and then going out and drafting a guy that, like, everyone was like, yeah, he makes sense for the Thunder, but why would you draft him when when Nikola Topic is basically Josh Giddey again? So you upgraded Josh Giddey, and then you got another Josh Giddey in Nikola Topic. So I really like what the Thunder did. I also said that I think Khalil Ware going 15th to the Heat is a win for both Khalil Ware and the Heat for a couple of reasons. One, I think, and I do believe that you will agree with me on this one, I think Khalil Ware is a top 5 talent in this draft class in terms of just pure basketball ability. When you're 7'2", when you can shoot, when you can protect the rim.
Wait, are you saying he's as talented as Donovan Klingon? Is that what I hear you saying?
I think raw talent ability, that they are in the same conversation. I think Klingon is a better basketball player, and I would take him before Khalil Ware, but I think that they are in the same conversation in terms of just raw ability. Khalil Ware has questions about his motor, questions how much he cares about basketball, questions about whether or not he wants to defend. Like, there's a lot of red flags around him as, I don't want to say as a person, because that's the wrong way to phrase it, but like as it's the talent is not the issue. I think it's just the best way to phrase that, right?
Is he a killer? Is he a killer? Is he going to work all the time? Is he going to be the guy that's in the gym first and leaves last? I know where you're going with this. I know where you're going with it.
Yeah.
And on one hand, I like it. On the other hand, I really don't like it.
Okay. Well, I just think that putting him in that Heat culture is the bet that you want to take at 15 in a draft like this, right? Because if it ends up working out, then you got yourself a guy that, like, I'm going to say, I think he has like legitimate all-star potential. I would not be shocked if he made a couple of all-star teams at some point in his career. I also would not be shocked if he was out of the NBA after his first rookie contract, right? I think he is the definition of a high ceiling, low floor kind of a player. And I think putting him in an organization that prioritizes work and defense and toughness and culture as much as the Heat do, I think that is the perfect fit for him. And I love that they made that bet. So I tell me why you don't think that this will work.
You know, first of all, like, again, if you're the Heat, you got a window here, right? You got a window, and I think there are more pressing needs right now than another big that, honestly, I'm not sure you're going to be able to put on the floor with Bam Adebayo all that often. And I just don't know if Khalil Ware is the answer right now for the Heat organization. It could go one or two ways, right? Like you said, it could be perfect in what the doctor ordered for Khalil Ware, and he takes this game to a different level. Jimmy makes him cry a few times in practice, and it motivates him to honestly, like, okay, this isn't going to affect me. I'm gonna grow. Like, I'm gonna get tougher. All this. He made strides last year. He did. I mean, he had a good year after a really bad freshman year at Oregon, in which, again, a lot of people question his love for the game and work ethic for the game. I think it got better. I just, again, I like it. I don't know if I love it, because I think there were bigger needs for this Miami Heat team. And it's one with a window of 2 years, probably with Jimmy Butler. And then you're talking about maybe a rebuild. I mean, I don't know if they'll ever do a full rebuild as long as Pat Riley's the GM and as long as Spo's the coach, but they're going to take a hit when they lose Jimmy Butler if they don't move him. And Chom said last night, like, Jimmy's not going anywhere this year.
Mm-hmm. All right. So biggest losers. Let's get into there.
Well, I want to hit one more winner. I want to hit one more winner before we get on the losers. One more. And it's Danny Ainge in Utah and what the Jazz did. And I actually think both of their picks are high upside picks, are they not? Like, and this is Danny. This is what he's done. This is what he does, right? Can he get a dude that other people kind of look at him and are like, I don't. Danny always talent, man. If like he went for talent, and he did it again because Cody Williams has talent. There's no disputing. Cody Williams and Isaiah Collier are two of the top 10 talented guys in this draft. Maybe even higher. Maybe two of the top 7 or 8 talented dudes in this draft. I'm not sure why Collier slipped that far. I think, again, it was a train wreck of a year at USC. He threw the ball all over the gym. That doesn't take care of it. Not a great shooter. You know, the thing I'll say is Utah needs a point guard. You know, like Keyshawn Jordan, he's not really a point guard. He had to play it this past year, but those two could play together. And Cody Williams, to me, the biggest thing that everybody would say, like, is he a dog, right? Well, he certainly wasn't last year at Colorado, but he was hurt. He was invisible in stretches. But I think he could be a really good player like his brother, and he's that multi-dimensional wing that everybody wants right now.
Yeah, I think that I wouldn't classify Cody Williams as like a high upside guy. You know what I mean? Like, I think that he's going to be a really, really good piece on an NBA team. I don't think that he's a guy that'll end up being an all-star, but I think that he's going to be, you know, someone that will average 12, 15 points a game and make enough threes and be a really good defensive piece. Like, I think that his brother is a good example of what he could end up being. I think that someone like a Jaden McDaniels at Minnesota is an example of something that he could like. He's just one of these. Everybody in the NBA is looking for 6'8" dudes with 7'2" wingspans that can make threes, that can play off the dribble, that can pass, and that can shoot. Right? Like that's what everyone's looking for. And Cody Williams is that. So I get it. I think he's a good pick. I think he's going to be a good pro. I think Isaiah Collier is more of a high upside guy. But I just look when I understand why he dropped as far as he did is probably the way that I would phrase it, right? Like there's questions about the turnovers, there's questions about the shooting. So I kind of get why he ended up where he did. But if you're Utah, 29th pick, it's worth the risk there. Biggest losers of the draft. I have a couple written down. I'm going to start with anybody that is a Washington Wizards fan because they went out.
You were the biggest loser. You had to go see Janet Jackson. You were the biggest loser.
I had a great time. I promise you I had more fun at the
than I did spending with Robbie Hummel. You're probably right.
At the Nelly Janet Jackson concert. It wasn't just Janet Jackson, Nelly Janet Jackson concert.
I like Nelly. I would have been excited to see Nelly.
Yeah, I would love to hear you rap a little bit of Nelly. No, but so I think the biggest losers was Washington Wizards fans because they got Alex Sarr, they drafted Bub Carrington, and they drafted Keyshawn George. Who
just keep swinging, Michael Winger. Keep swinging.
Yeah, like here's the thing. I love Bub Carrington's potential, right? I think he's probably a year away from being a year away. I love Keyshawn George's potential, right? But he's another guy that is going to take some time to get there. And Alex Sarr has a really high ceiling, but he is not someone that's going to step right in. And yeah, so they're tanking again.
It's perfect because they want to tank again. They want imagine tanking again and getting Cooper Flagg in a year. Then you're like, okay, you know what? All right, Michael Winger's got Washington business a little bit, right? Like they want that youth. Like he wanted to bottom this thing out. And that's why I was still shocked that they got Jordan Poole. Because like if you wanted to bottom it out, now Hummel made a good point last night. He was like, yeah, that's why they got Jordan Poole, because they knew they would lose. Like Jordan Poole's not really a winning player. But I don't. By the way, Hummel had the line of the night. Did you see it last night? He broke the news when Zach Edey was drafted. He said, he's enormous. Breaking news from Robbie Hummel. You don't get that insight anywhere else from anybody else.
Thanks, Goodman. Thanks for that. Thanks for that addition. All right, other biggest losers in the draft, because I have we talked about the Chicago Bulls taking Modest over Dalton Knecht. So I'm not going to go back down on that one. I have two other ones written down for biggest losers. I'm going to let you go first, though, because I know you have a take on this.
I don't know which take I have on this. Was it my Spurs take?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm conflicted. I'm super conflicted with the Spurs because and I've said this all year, maybe not all year, but after the first month or two, to me, in this draft, I would have considered taking Stephon Castle at number 1. I really would. I think he's going to be that good. I don't know how well he fits in San Antonio. I would have liked more floor spacing around Wemby, to be honest, but I don't think you can pass up on him. So I'm okay with the 4 pick being Castle, because at that point you're going with the best player that you think is on the board, and I think Castle can be an NBA All-Star one day. I really do. I think he can be the best player to come out of this.
Yeah, so that's kind of where I'm at with it too. I don't think it's the perfect fit. I think that Castle will end up being enough of a shooter that you can't just not guard him. I think we saw that Alabama learned that the hard way in the Final Four this past season. But I'm envisioning, imagine guarding a pick and roll where Steph Castle is the guy on the ball and Victor Wembanyama is the guy playing drop coverage. Like you're not scoring against that. Yeah. You have the core right here of what could end up being one of the best defenses in the NBA, if not the best defense in the NBA. And I think that starting there and then adding pieces around them that can shoot is something where I get what they're doing there and I get how that would work. I don't know if I necessarily would have given up the number 8 pick in this year's draft to be able to go out and add a pick for 2031 or whatever it is.
That's my problem, Rob. That's my problem. That's where I'm conflicted, right? Like the 4 pick talent Not sure I love it fit. And then the number 8 pick just – and again, I know this draft isn't great, but you're telling me you couldn't have traded it for a first-rounder somewhere like before Pop's going to be in a nursing home? Like, what are we doing here?
Yeah, no, I get the Castle pick. I actually really like the Castle pick. I really like the fit there, but I didn't – the rest of it didn't make sense. The only thing that kind of makes it make sense is they just didn't love anybody else in this first round. And it's like, why would we – for your picking 8th, you're going to be locked into a certain amount of money that you had guys 4 years. And if you just don't buy anyone at that level, then giving it up for draft capital is something that would make some sense. And maybe by the time you get to 2031, Minnesota's going to be back to being a train wreck, and you'll actually be able to get a pretty decent pick out of it. So, yeah. And then at that point, you're adding pieces to what would be 27-year-old Victor Wembanyama and 26-year-old Steph Castle. So, I get it in theory. I think you probably could have got if the Nets could get 4 first-round picks for Mikal Bridges. Like you got to be able to get more than like 1 first rounder 7 years from now for
something in the near vicinity, something in the next 3 years that it shocks me that like GMs would even do that, right? Like a GM's going to take, because they know they're probably not going to be there in 7 years to ever make
2031, man. 2031.
Now they'll probably try to flip it. They'll probably try to flip that 2031 pick before 2031. It's just, again, 7 years from now just is obscene.
All right, I'm going to let you say what you got to say about the Pistons now. Drafted Ron Holland 5th. Jonathan Wasserman was celebrating it. The best player in this draft class, he said, went 5th to the Pistons. But you're adding another guy that's athletic that can't shoot around Cade Cunningham, who already has 38 guys on that roster who are athletic and cannot shoot.
That's my issue. Like, if Ron Holland is the best player in the draft, all right, great job. Great job, Trajan Langdon. Like, great pick, all of it. I don't know if I'm convinced of that. First of all, again, Fran Fraschilla last night said on our stadium show that his shot is broke. Literally said his shot. And he loves Ron Holland. I just think you have too many guys that their shots aren't – everywhere you look, you have kind of either mediocre or non-shooters, right? I mean, you look at it and, Jaden Ivey's not a great shooter. Even Cade's he's an average shooter, right? And then you look up front. And you got Jalen Duren, who's not really kind of a non-shooter, Isaiah Stewart. And then you got, I forget which, is it Asar Thompson? He can't shoot at all. Yeah. So, like, it just doesn't fit. So now you're kind of forced to have to make trades. And you don't have really the leverage. None of these guys have done enough that they have enough trade value that you want to move them right now. So you're going to go through another year. And I actually think they have some talent there. So they have some pieces that are tradable assets, but they have, you're going to have to trade them at 50 cents in the dollar right now. So I don't like the Ron Holland pick with that Detroit group, to be honest. And I also think, you're going to have another year of not even mediocrity, of shittiness with Cade Cunningham, who I think can be a really, really, really good player in this league.
Yeah. Save Cade. We got to get Cade out of there. The last one that I have written down for the biggest loser was Kyle Filipowski, but also to a point Duke. So as good as it was for college basketball that we saw Zach Edey have the success that he did, I think that looking at what's happened with Duke, Filipowski, and to a point Tyrese Proctor is not a great thing overall, because those are two guys that came back to school for their sophomore years, right? Two guys that were potential first round picks after their one and done seasons. They came back to school. Proctor had to come back for his junior year because he did not have a great sophomore season. And Filipowski went from being a guy that was I think a sleeper to be picked in the back end of the lottery to being one of 2 players that attended the draft in New York, went to the green room, and is now going to have to go back to the green room for day 2 because he wasn't picked. What do you make of what happened with Kyle Filipowski there? And do you have any insight on why he is still waiting to hear his name called?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a combination of things with Kyle Filipowski. Like, one, what is he? What is he in the NBA? He doesn't shoot it well enough to be a stretch 4. He's not a 5 yet. Could he be a backup 5 in time? Maybe. What can he guard? And then the other part is, listen, the I don't know if character issues are the right term to describe Kyle Filipowski, but like as a teammate, there were a lot of question marks last year. There were a lot of question marks that went around that Duke program about Filipowski as a teammate. Was he the best teammate? That stuff gets out there. And when you're already a guy that they're questioning, can he play at this level? And what can he be? And then you start to say, all right, like, is he going to accept it? Is he going to be a good teammate as a role guy? Well, you start to see a guy like that, slips.
So I think that I would disagree a little bit on the sense that he's not a good fit at the NBA level, because I think that you can very easily draw a line from like him to a Kelly Olynyk to a Frank Kaminsky. Like, we've seen that kind of player.
Wait. Frank's not in the NBA. Olynyk really isn't very good. Like, great. Yeah,
but
there probably is a comparison.
Well, yeah, but Kelly Olynyk I'm going to bring it up right now. He's played 11 years in the NBA as a backup big that is averaging 10 points, 5 boards, and 2.5 assists for his career, that can make threes, right? That's his career. He's now in year 10 in the NBA. He's shooting 37% from three on his career, and his career averages are 10 points, 5.2 boards, 2.4 assists. Like, that if you're getting that with the 28th pick, let's just say in the NBA draft, like, that's great value, right? I think Frank Kaminsky played 8 years in the NBA as like a decent big off the bench. Like the role that Filipowski,
he didn't end up playing that much.
Well, the role that Filipowski can play off the bench as a stretch big is like we see it. It's very easy to make the comparison to the other guys that he can be at the NBA level. So I don't think it's the fit as much as it is kind of that other stuff that you said. Like, I think that the basketball community is a small community, right? So I think that I do believe that there is something to be said there. I also think there's a non-zero chance. There's a non-zero chance that part of the reason why he fell to the second round is because he actually had his foot amputated after the court storming incident at Wake Forest, and nobody knew about it. Duke is very, very good at hiding news and making sure stuff like that doesn't get out, right? Unless you're the one that breaks it.
Almost.
Because you're the only one that has a source at the University of Duke or Duke University. And so I think that there's a very real chance that he might just have a wooden foot. Like, he might have a peg leg. He might actually be a pirate.
Let's edit this out. When after the recording's done, let's edit that last part out and just put a picture of a clown face on Dauster. Not even talking, just a clown face. I have one thing to add on the Dalton Knecht part, by the way, because I got a few more texts back in while we were talking about why Dalton Knecht might have fallen, and somebody said one of the things that they were concerned about was his basketball IQ a little bit, and they felt like that might have fallen as well. That he's a scorer, but how is it going to translate basketball IQ wise to the next level? So I don't think there's an easy answer as to why Dalton Knecht fell. I think it's a few things, combination of age, maybe basketball IQ, maybe the agent overplaying their hand and not working out for some of those teams in the teens, even in the 10 to 16 range. And I think Filipowski probably, again, one of those things where if you're on the fringe and then people start hearing things about you as a teammate and whether you're all in and a good teammate or a great teammate, that's not what you want if you're right there on the fringe to begin with. Furphy, it looks like right now probably made the worst decision or the most ill-advised decision of anybody, because you're talking about a guy that had a good, literally, how many good games did he have? If we look back at it, how many games did he have? And you could probably call it up right now as we're talking.
It was like Kansas. A run of 10 or 11 in the middle of the year, right, when he moved to the starting lineup.
So should Johnny Furphy have come back for another year? Well, I mean, again, it's easy to say that now. A lot of people thought he'd go in the 20s and get guaranteed money. It'll be interesting to see where he goes in round 2 and what type of contract he gets, what type of guarantee he gets. But Furphy's the guy that I think probably would love to have a do-over. I think Justin Edwards is one I would have loved to have seen transfer and give it another year in college, to be honest, Rob.
You know what? Give me your best 5 players left on the board then, since we're talking about 2 of them here. Give me your best 5 players left on the board right now.
I mean, Tyler Kolek for sure is a backup point guard in the league, I think. Flip, we just talked about Furphy. Adem Bona, I thought the Celtics might take him at 30 because I think he fits what they need a lot, but Brad Stevens obviously loved Baylor Shireman. And then, Justin Edwards, Cam Christie would be on there as well. Those are 5 or 6 guys that I think we're going to watch tonight. And then at pick 55, I know you're not going anywhere. Are you going to have any sort of like Bronny celebration party when the Lakers take him at 55 or no?
Yeah, probably. I think that's exactly what I'm going to do with my Thursday night. Is I'm going to pop a bottle of bubbly, and it's going to be like 3:00 in the afternoon here, and I'm just going to celebrate. I'm going to spray champagne all over my living room when Bronny James goes 55th. On Baylor Shireman, real quick, like we didn't get a chance to talk about him a ton on this show, but he is going to be I love it. I love it in Boston. Like I just look, he is the perfect kind of complementary piece, right? You're looking for those connectors when you're a team like the Celtics. Like you need a guy that's going to be able,
like Sam Hauser is.
Yes, but I think that Baylor Shireman is as good of a shooter as Sam Hauser is. He's a better passer. I think he's tougher. I think he's a better rebounder. Like I think that he is. I think we're going to look up in 5 years, and like Baylor Shireman is like Joe Ingles. I think that is exactly who he's going to end up being, as a guy that's going to average like 12 points, 6 boards, 4 assists, shoot 39% from 3, and just be a really good role player on a bunch of teams that win a lot of games. Like I think he is a terrific player. I think that you are getting someone that's going to come in and impact the game right now. And I do think it's interesting, Jeff, that we did see a bunch of guys that were older that got a 5th year option that came back for extra year, like end up having it pay off with getting drafted. Like it's not just Shireman, it's not just Knecht, it's not just Zach Edey that was able to play their way into getting drafted. Cam Spencer is going to go somewhere in the 2nd round, right? And he used his 5th year at UConn this past season. Tristan Newton's probably going to go somewhere in the 2nd round. There are a lot of guys that were able to use
Kevin McCullough.
Yeah. Yes, guys that were able to use their extra year. I think Devin Carter. I think Terrence Shannon is a guy that we saw get, but like there's a lot of guys that NIL allowed them to stay and develop, and now the NBA is going to get that's going to pay dividends for the NBA because they are getting players that are more ready to step in and contribute right away. Sure. Baylor Shireman might have needed to play 3 years in Europe to be able to get to the point where he made an NBA roster.
It's going to be interesting though. But it is going to be interesting because the 2nd round usually is a 3rd international, guys. Okay, so it's usually out of the 30 picks tonight, you could take out 10 of them. That leaves 20. Take out 1 for Bronny. We're already down to about 19 picks. We'll see. I mean, we just mentioned 5 guys: Flip, Furphy, Bona, Kolek, Edwards.
All I would say is like once you get past 45, like I do feel like a lot of teams will just take a foreign guy because they don't want to have to deal with the hassle of working through the agents and having a guy like it's one of those like everyone talks about.
A lot of them don't have spots, so they don't.
Or you get like something with like Naz Reid who went undrafted. Well, he went undrafted because it was made clear like he wanted to go to a certain spot, and his agent kind of told people we're not going to end up signing with you if like you take us. Or Fred VanVleet, same kind of situation. Like a lot of guys go undrafted because they want to be able to pick where they want to go. So once you get past 45, and if you're picked in the top 45, like you're probably getting guaranteed money as an American. Like it might not be 4 years guaranteed like you do in the 1st round, but you'll get 3 years guaranteed, 3 years, a year and a half guaranteed with a player or a team option or something like that for your. Like you'll be able to make really good money that 1st year if you're picked in the top 45. So listen, we got that draft is coming up here soon. I can't wait to see where Tyler Kolek goes. I'll be very curious to see where Kyle Filipowski goes. And obviously, I will be rooting for Cam Spencer to end up on the New York. Is there a better fit than Cam Spencer playing for the New York Knicks this year? I don't think that there is. Maybe the Heat. Put Cam Spencer on the Heat, put Cam Spencer on the Knicks, and he's going to end up being an all-star. If Duncan Robinson can be $100 million man playing for Spo, Cam Spencer might be worth $250 million. He might end up being a max contract kind of a guy. Listen, all I had to do was talk about UConn to get Goodman to leave, and everybody now can see. Can we get a close up here, Dagan, on Jeff Goodman's bed and just how well he made his bed? Unbelievable, man. Come on, get it together. You were going to be on national television and you couldn't even make your bed. Listen, for Jeff Goodman's unmade bed, for our producer, Dagan Hughes, my name is Rob Dauster. Appreciate you guys being here. We have some more content coming up in the next couple of weeks. We are going to be doing off-season grades and off-season recaps for at least the top 45 teams in America, if not more. I'll be joined by a number of our biggest names on the network and a couple of new faces that you haven't seen yet, but that will be joining us on the Field of 68 this coming season. Appreciate you guys being here and enjoy your weekend.